Hello everyone and welcome back to Eve Market, your weekly look at the amarr market. I saw that we had another black sales from CCP. The black was off again. It was this last week. I don't know if it's this week still up. Let me see quickly in here if there's still black sales. Eve Vegas stickers 2016. I see. It's not straight away here to see. But then again, there was a black sales at least, so may see a drop in black prices. But we'll see that at the end when we're gonna look at blacks. But first off, we're gonna start off with the minerals. As usual, we're gonna straight away start on titanium here. Titanium is still dropping in price here. We're dropping now then below the 550. You see also now then still a little bit above it. Also today still slightly above it. Pretty big sales for the Friday and Saturday on titanium. Pretty big spikes up here, like almost double the amount than normal's getting sold. So that's at least about guessing 3 to 4 billion units of titanium being sold here, and these two per day. So pretty big sales. It doesn't have too much effect on the price, but the price is definitely dropping. 20-day and 5-day average both dropping. All the 5 days going slightly up here, but that's only a 5-day average. For titanium prices, for the sellers 5.79, for the buyers 5.46. It is a decent drop for it. 5.65 was last week's price, so titanium has definitely dropped a bit on price here. Hopefully we're gonna see a little bit more of a drop, but there are already not too many buy orders up for it. So I don't expect it to dropping a lot more. They are also pretty decent big sizes orders, so I don't think it's gonna drop a lot more. Then we have ferrite. Also this one is still dropping in price. We are dropping below the 10 ISK per unit. It's already there for like 4 days on average price. The 5-day average is also below the 10 ISK per unit. 20 days not yet, but it is also dropping down. Expecting this one, if the price keeps on going down next week, also dropping below the 10 per unit. But clearly it is dropping. Not really any huge sales here. Pretty normal sales for the whole week. You can clearly see it starting to drop. Prices for it 9.37. That's already below the 10 ISK for the sellers, and 9.27 for the buyers. Last week we're selling just above the 10 ISK, was 10.01 was last week's price. So it's a nice drop for ferrite and a nice low price for it. Then we have Maxilon. Maxilon on the other hand is pretty much staying around the same price. We see also here on one day we had a little bit bigger sales. That was on the first day. That also made the price, average price from that day, pretty low to about just above the 64 per unit. But that's because someone sold pretty a lot on towards on the market. That pushed the price down. We can clearly see that next day it's straight away back up above the 72. That's clearly more than a 10 is difference between these 2 days. But then after that you see for the Saturday and for today we're seeing a little bit of a price drop in here. So we may gonna see prices dropping a little bit on Maxilon. It has been going up for a while. Let's see, it is just really high price at the moment. Here it was really low and suddenly the sales starting to spike. Also you can clearly see a little bit less sales and here a little bit more sales here and there. It's starting to spike now. The sales starting to drop a bit and the price seems to be starting to drop too. So expecting that Maxilon soon starting to drop a bit in price. 69.13 for the sellers at the moment, and for the buyers 66.37. That is lower than last week. Last week we were a little bit higher, but 68.03 was last week's price. So you can clearly see Maxilon is starting to drop, and I'm definitely expecting also next week it's gonna keep on dropping. I think it's gonna drop for a few more weeks, because it is just a really high price at the moment. Hydrogen on the other hand is staying pretty stable. Also here on the first day a little bit bigger sales, so someone definitely been selling a lot of minerals. It didn't have really any effect. It is a little bit lower price for this days, but these here were two that even were lower than this one, so this had not really any effect on it. Staying pretty much around the 90 and the 85 is staying between there. I cannot really say that it is dropping in price. It looks like it's trying to drop in price. You see clearly here now between yesterday and today the 20-day average is starting to drop slightly, so it is trying, but it's not really going down. For the sellers 90.69, for the buyers 85.03. It's only slightly lower than last week's price. That was 85.37, so it has not dropped a lot, so it is pretty stable on the price. It's not moving too much around. Like I said, it is trying to drop, but it is not going down. And Noxium is starting to be a little bit more unstable in this whole week. I see also bigger sales here. That was about a week ago. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, it was even a little bit more than a week ago. After that, it became a little bit more unstable. You see between the ranges is sitting between 410 and 450 to 460. But the ranges are getting a little bit small, except for today. We're sitting a little bit between the 500 and the 410. It is already pushing the price a little bit up. You can clearly see the 5-day average is starting to go up here, and also the 20-day average starting to go up. So it looks like Noxium is probably gonna go up in price. Look a little bit at the 3 months. We had small ups here, so there was a bigger one. So I'm expecting definitely now the price gonna make an uptrend at the moment for Noxium. Maybe a small one, maybe a big one, but seeing this spike, it may be gonna be a big spike for Noxium. Not sure if it's really gonna happen, but seeing also the data on here. Let's go to a quick look at 6 months. We are a little bit lower on price, and it's trying to get up, and now it keeps dropping towards a lower price. But it wants to go up to its normal position, but it doesn't get there every time. So looking at the ranges, I'm definitely gonna expect a price uptrend for Noxium. For the sellers 454.90, and for the buyers we're seeing 418.25. It is still lower than last week, so if you need Noxium, I say buy it now. Last week's price was 425 per unit, so it did still make it drop a bit, but I don't think it's gonna drop a lot more. I think it more likely it's starting to go up pretty soon, up the next week. If you need it, I probably should buy it now. Zynet on the other hand is still going up. It seems to be starting to stabilize a bit on price. I see the 20-day average is starting to slow down a bit. There was a pretty big sales on Zynet here on the Saturday, but really had no effect on it. So someone was just probably, a lot of people were buying and selling it, so it's staying pretty much on the same price. Highest price we've been here is about 1400, but it doesn't seem to want to go back up there. For today's thing a lot low, but it's way too early to see what it's gonna do. But it looks like Zynet is starting to stabilize a bit on the price. There are pretty big size orders up on the market, all over the 100,000 units. There's at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 decent one is even getting closer to just over a quarter, 3/4 of a million. It's a pretty big amount of Zynet that's on the market here. But for the sellers, 1,374.97 for the sellers price. For the buyers, we're seeing it pretty much a lot lower, 1,214.16 for that. That is lower than last week even. Last week's price was 1,310 flat. So definitely also Zynet is starting to make a drop in price. We have Magazite. Magazite was going up already, but it was for this whole week pretty stable. Seen slightly lower here, but seems to be pretty much stabilizing around the 1500 per unit. Today we are surprisingly already sitting around the same amount of sales from yesterday, and it's only like 9 o'clock in the morning. So we're probably gonna see a pretty big sales amount today on Mega site here in amarr. But also the lowest price has been pretty low. It's really low, by the way. Cheapest was just over 1070 on the sales. That's pretty low. So this is making the average daily price already pretty low here. But for most of the week it's sitting around 1500, so maybe see only for today a pretty lower price. But we'll see a quick look at the market data in a moment. Sorry, had to cough for a moment. So today we're definitely gonna see probably a lower price on Mega site. For the sellers, also pretty big size orders. This is 1.4 million units even. That's a pretty big size. 1549.97 for the sellers. For the buyers, 1340.32. That's a lot lower than last week's price. It's clearly making a drop. So someone has been selling a lot of Mega site towards the buyers. What is making now the price drop? Last week's price was 1465. Was last week's price, so it dropped more than 100 per unit. That's a pretty big drop, and you could clearly see at the graph that someone has been selling it a lot already today. Was getting on the amount, even on the average amount for this whole month. So I'm probably gonna see definitely a spike here today on the sales. Then we have Morphite. Morphite is still dropping in price after this huge spike here. It's even bringing up to 20,000 this month. But it's now, I saw it last week dropping, and it keeps on dropping now. It seems to be slowing down a little bit on the drop. Also here, by the way, pretty huge sales here on yesterday. Did not really have an effect too much on the price. It's not like we have a big dip here on the price, sitting even at the same price as on the Friday on the average price. So, but 20-day average still dropping, 5-day is slightly dropping. It is slowing down at the moment, the Morphite income. So, if it's gonna drop more, I don't know, but I'm expecting it will drop more at some point. Sellers price 16,500 for the sellers. For the buyers, we're seeing clearly a lot lower, 13,000 or 13 on that. While last week's price we were still sitting at 17,532. That was a really high price. I don't think we have broken any records on my sheet, no. So that's a lot drop on the price for Morphite, and this will definitely continue on next week. Maybe a little bit on slower rate, but not as fast as we have seen now. Then a little bit of regular salvage that's here on the market. Armor plates are making suddenly a really big drop here on today, but that's really too early to say what's going to doing. For the most of the week, it's sitting pretty much stable at 76,000 per unit. Pretty much staying there the whole week. There's not really any movement on there, except for today, but someone maybe have made a mistake. Sellers usually above the 500 units. That's only the first one is here. There's a pretty way down. It's 16,000 units even. 78,250 for the sellers, and we're sitting at 68,000 for the buyers. That's a decent drop again on armor plates. Last week's price was 77,503. So it's a pretty big drop on the price there. And this is getting close to a record bottom price. The record bottom price in it 67,000 and a half. That's the record bottom price for it since 2015. So getting close to it. So definitely armor plates dropping. These on the buyer's price, it doesn't have really effect on the graph yet, except for today. But the buyer's price is around here, so we'll see what's gonna do next week. Burn logic circuits seems to be finally hit its top prices around 58,000. It seems to have make a drop here in the week. Around Wednesday it started to make a drop. No, Wednesday was still high. Yeah, Thursday was suddenly a lot lower. Also the Friday a lot lower, around 54,000 per unit. But also can clearly see the Saturday and Sunday we are already climbing back up on price. For already heading to the 56,000 per unit. what this is gonna do next week, I really have no idea. It's really hard to say what that one is gonna do next week. Prices, more than 500 units, gonna drop down a little bit. 59,900 for the sellers then. For the buyers, 55,101.91 on that. That is lower than last week, so on the buyers, a little bit less buyers here for it. Last week's price, 57,251. So definitely that is dropping on price. And this is, yeah, maybe going on next week, but you see also here is going up again. That is definitely on the sellers, that because they're not really too big orders, so we can clearly go here quickly towards the 60,000, 62,000 even. It's a pretty big gap in between those two of 2,000 per unit. So it can go basically both ways. If a lot of getting sold towards the buyers, the price will drop. If people just keep buying from the market, the price go up. But that we'll see probably next week what's really gonna do. Freight interface service on the other hand seems to be really stable around the same price for the whole week. Hasn't been moved a lot, sitting at 2,600, no, 750, around that price for the whole week. Only little spike here was the 2,900 per unit, but that's it on any special movement here. Really stable freight interface circuits. After here a little bit a lot movement. So it seems to be pretty stable for like half of the month, because we've been here like a whole week flat on the same price of 3,000 and suddenly making a drop, small movements here, and then again flat on the same price. The freight interface still trying to drop in price even more, but there are already not too many buyers here. More than 500 units, 3,600 per unit on the sellers then, and 2,751.25 for the buyers. That is a slight uptrend in the price. It's not really a lot of uptrend, it's only 100 higher than last week. So last week's price 2,650, and now we're slightly above that again, 2,751. Melted capacitor consoles, they have been really stable for like a long time. They're still staying between the 7,500 8,000. We see a pretty big spike here on the one day. Let's see what day was that. This is the Sunday, Saturday, Friday, Thursday, Wednesday. On the Tuesday, so early this week, we've seen a really high spike here on price, on the average price per day. Let's look at the table here. Yeah, a lot of rent. The lowest price was 9,000 plus 9,800, and also the highest was 9,800. So it's been sold only for that price that whole day. So that's why there's such a high average price here that day. Well, the sales amounts were pretty normal, so some market manipulation here maybe happened, trying to get the price up, but you can clearly see here it did not happen. Once it went straight back down towards its normal price, just about 7,400 per unit. Did not work out, unfortunately. On the other hand, there are not many on the market anymore. There's mainly about 20, between 22,000 looks like it on the market, not a lot. 8,200 for the sellers, and for the buyers we're sitting at 7,402 still. 7,400 last week's price, so did not really move any. Then trip power circuits, also this week pretty stable, big sales here. But the whole week sitting around the 18,000 per unit. It seems to be a pretty normal price now for trip power circuits. A lot higher price here for today, heading for 19,000. So we may gonna see. Oh, it is a pretty low price. So we're gonna see now, probably beginning of the week, a little bit of an uptrend in price for the trip power circuits. It is going here up for today. The rest of the week has been pretty stable around the 18,000. So expecting we're gonna see a little bit of a spike on trip power circuit prices. Let's see, 20,993 for the sellers, and for the buyers we're sitting at 17,601. That is, by the way, lower than last week's, because that was 18,211. So it has dropped a little bit on the buy price, but the graph says that we are maybe going up in price. So I'm still expecting a little bit of uptrend in price because it's already that low. But maybe it's just going the other way. You never know about the ETH market. A quick look at Plex. Like I said, there was a Plex sales again. That definitely had effect here. I don't know when the sale started, but if the sale started here, you can clearly see it had an effect again on it. If the sale stopped this week, you can clearly see it that's going up. I haven't kept track of it if it was when the sale started or when it stopped. So you can clearly see here it's starting to go back up again on price. Also a little bit higher sales amount here on Plex. At the moment the price is starting to drop. It dropped to about 840 million, even lower than that. That's true because that was about last week even. But you can clearly see that it's going up, so we're not gonna have a new record price on the Plex, that's for sure. A lot of people start buying it in. So Plex sales, sellers 910 million. That's a pretty low one. The next one is 940 million. There's already 4 million difference, and not really too close anymore. Then there's also not almost 3 million difference in it. So 910 million for the sellers, and for the buyers 854.1 million. Just a little bit below that for the sales. That's about 5 units he wants to buy in. Not a record price. Last week's was definitely a record price, but not this week. Last week's price 837,650,000 was last week's price for the Plex. So we went a little bit up in that for the Plex. So that was this week look at the amarr market. We have no records on lowest price or top prices this week, mainly because Plex went up in price. We may see some prices up and some prices going down on the next week. Not really sure which one is going to be. Plex is going up with some salvage. Probably Trade Power Circuit is going to do some movement, what we're thinking of. But mainly we're going to see that all next week, which way it's going to go. If you have anything that you think that I need to follow on prices in amarr, please let me know down in the comments. If you want something special to be to follow me, something new, I don't think there really are any structures. We may can look quickly at citadels if these are even on the market. Factions probably not even on the market, but people are trying to buy it. But standard citadels, I don't know even they are on the market. There are Strausses on the market. Here clearly for 1.6 billion. There are no Fortresars on the market. There's no Keepstars on the market. That's really what I expected. There's still only in the whole ETH universe, so far I know it's a wormhole alliance, if I'm not mistaken, that already has a Keepstar, and it's only the only Keepstar that's currently in the game. I'm really surprised none of the alliances, big alliances in nullsec, have any of these yet. The Doctor Titans and stuff. Of course, it is a magnet where you place one to maybe start a war and stuff. So I will have soon Citadel flyby of the Keepstar, because I already bought out the other two, the Strauss and the Fortresar. There will be a Keepstar. I already have the video. It's all the videos already done. Only need to change a little bit of the music because I didn't like the music. I need to change that. So this was this week's look. We'll see you all next week again when we're gonna look at the amarr market. Thanks for watching and fly safe.